Hey everyone, welcome back to the Study English Online, your podcast for easy English conversation, real daily life talk, and simple listening practice.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Anna. So Jake, quick question. If a close friend made the exact same mistake you made yesterday, how would you talk to them about it?
Honestly, probably really gently. I'd tell them, it's okay, everyone makes mistakes, nothing to worry about.
Right. And now, honestly, how did you actually talk to yourself about that same mistake?
Oh, that's a much harsher question. Honestly, probably a lot more critical than I'd ever be with a friend.
Exactly. And I think that gap between how kindly we treat others and how harshly we treat ourselves is such a common, relatable pattern and a perfect topic for today.
Right. Today we're talking about how to be kind to yourself. Useful vocabulary, simple daily habits, and a gentle mindset shift that connects to almost everything we've covered on this podcast so far.
Exactly. This feels like such a natural, warm way to bring together ideas from our episodes on motivation, stress, overthinking, and comparison, too.
Right. I think self-kindness might honestly be the thread running underneath almost everything we've talked about on this podcast, whether we've named it directly or not.
That's such a lovely way to think about it. Today's episode almost feels like pulling together a common theme that's been quietly present in so many of our previous conversations.
Before we start, quick reminder, if you enjoy this episode, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a little kindness today. Maybe even yourself.
And tell us in the comments, what's one kind thing you can say to yourself today? Great writing practice, too.
Okay, let's get into it.
Let's start simple, Jake. How would you describe self-kindness in your own words?
I'd say it's treating yourself with the same warmth, patience, and understanding you'd naturally offer someone you care about, especially during difficult or imperfect moments.
Right. And I think it's worth clarifying what self-kindness isn't, too. It's not about ignoring mistakes or pretending everything is always fine. It's about responding to imperfection with compassion rather than harsh criticism.
Exactly. And this connects to a concept sometimes called self-compassion, which research actually shows helps people recover from setbacks faster and stay motivated more effectively compared to harsh self-criticism.
Right. That's such an important point. Self-kindness isn't just a nice, soft idea. It's genuinely a more effective, practical approach, too. Jake, do you have a personal story about learning to be kinder to yourself?
Sure, actually connected to our procrastination episode. I used to talk to myself really harshly whenever I procrastinated, calling myself lazy, undisciplined, things I'd never say to a friend.
How did that harsh self-talk actually affect you?
Honestly, it made things worse. The harsh criticism just added more guilt and shame, which made starting the task feel even harder, not easier.
That's such an important insight. Harsh self-criticism actually working against the outcome it's trying to create.
Exactly. And eventually, I started experimenting with talking to myself the way I'd talk to a friend. Okay, you're stuck. That happens. Let's just take one small step. And it genuinely made starting tasks feel much easier.
Do you remember what it felt like the first time you actually tried speaking to yourself that way, after being so used to the harsher voice?
Honestly, it felt a little strange at first, almost fake, like I was pretending to be kinder than I actually felt.
But you kept practicing it anyway, even when it felt a little forced.
Definitely. After a few weeks of consistent practice, that gentler voice started to feel like a genuine, natural part of how I actually think, rather than something I had to consciously perform each time.
That's such an encouraging thing to hear, that even if self-kindness feels unfamiliar or forced at first, it genuinely can become a natural, automatic habit with enough consistent practice.
Exactly. And that's such a beautiful example of self-kindness being practical, not just emotionally nicer, but actually more effective too. Anna, what about you?
Mine is connected to our comparison episode. I used to be really critical of myself whenever I compared my progress to someone else's, feeling like I should be further along or better than I actually was.
That sounds like such a heavy, constant pressure to carry.
Right, and I remember a therapist once asking me, "Would you say these same words to your best friend?" And honestly, the answer was clearly no. I would never speak to a friend the way I sometimes spoke to myself.
That's such a powerful, simple question.
Exactly. And ever since then, whenever I notice harsh self-talk creeping in, I try to pause and ask myself that same question, which usually helps me soften my tone significantly.
Do you remember a specific moment recently where that question genuinely helped shift your perspective?
Actually, yes. Just last month, I felt really disappointed in myself after a project didn't go as smoothly as I'd hoped. My first instinct was harsh, critical thoughts, but I paused and asked that question and immediately realized I would have told a friend in that exact situation, "You did your best with the information you had. That's all anyone can do."
That's such a clear, immediate example of the shift from harsh judgment to genuine understanding, just by pausing and asking that one simple question.
Exactly. And honestly, that pause itself, just a few seconds to ask the question, is often enough to interrupt the harsher, more automatic pattern before it fully takes hold.
Let's build out some useful vocabulary for practicing self-kindness specifically.
Self-compassion phrases. "It's okay, I'm doing my best," or "I'm allowed to make mistakes," are simple, direct self-compassion phrases.
A few more. "I'm human, this happens," or "I'm learning, and that's enough for now." Both offer gentle, realistic reassurance during imperfect moments.
Right, and these phrases work best when they feel genuine rather than forced, so it's worth finding the specific words that feel most natural and true for you personally. Instead of "I'm so stupid," try "That was a mistake and I can learn from it." Instead of "I always mess things up," try "This didn't go as planned, but that doesn't define me." Right, and instead of "I should be further along by now," try "I'm exactly where I am, and that's okay." Instead of "I'm failing," try "This is hard, and I'm still trying." Notice how each reframe keeps the honesty of the situation without adding unnecessary harshness or exaggeration on top of it. "I worked hard on this, even if it's not perfect," or "I showed up today, and that matters." Acknowledge effort rather than only focusing on outcomes. Right, and "I did what I could with what I had today" is another lovely phrase, especially useful on days when energy or circumstances were genuinely limited. "This is hard right now, and that's okay," or "I'm allowed to rest," offer genuine comfort during difficult moments. A few more. "I don't have to have this figured out yet," or "I'm allowed to ask for help." Both offer real, practical comfort during moments of struggle or uncertainty. Let's cover some simple, practical habits for building more self-kindness into daily life. Whenever you notice harsh self-talk, ask, "Would I say this to a friend?" and adjust accordingly. Right, this connects directly to my own story earlier. It's honestly such a simple, quick test, but genuinely effective at catching unnecessarily harsh self-talk in the moment. Exactly, and over time, this question can become almost automatic, a quick, built-in check before harsh thoughts fully take hold. Doing one small, kind thing for yourself each day, a favorite drink, a short break, a few quiet minutes. Right, this connects to our small habits episode too. Even something tiny, consistently repeated, genuinely builds a stronger overall pattern of self-kindness over time. Exactly, and it doesn't need to be elaborate or time-consuming. The consistency matters far more than the size of the kind act itself. Connecting to our small habits episode, noticing and acknowledging small daily wins rather than only focusing on what's left undone. Right, at the end of the day, instead of only reviewing your to-do list for what's incomplete, try noting one or two things you did accomplish, even small ones. Exactly. This small shift in focus from lack to accomplishment genuinely supports a kinder, more balanced relationship with yourself over time. Practicing a specific, gentle phrase ready for moments of mistake or difficulty so it's available automatically rather than needing to think of it in a stressful moment. Right. Similar to Jake's story earlier, having a specific, prepared phrase, okay, that happened, let's take the next small step, removes the need to find the right words while already feeling stressed or upset. I want to introduce a helpful framework here too, developed by researcher Kristen Neff, who identified 3 core components of genuine self-compassion. Right. The first is self-kindness, which we've been discussing, treating yourself warmly rather than harshly, especially during difficulty. The second is common humanity, recognizing struggle, imperfection, and difficulty are part of being human, shared by everyone, rather than something that makes you uniquely flawed or alone. And the third is mindfulness, acknowledging your difficult feelings honestly without either exaggerating them dramatically or completely suppressing them. Right, and I think common humanity specifically is such a powerful piece because struggling can feel so isolating, like you're the only one experiencing this way, when really it's an incredibly common part of everyone's life. Exactly, and remembering that connects back to our comparison episode too. Everyone struggles, even people who look calm and put together from the outside. Right, and combining all 3, kindness, shared humanity, and honest acknowledgement, creates a much more complete, balanced approach to self-compassion than any single piece alone. I also think it's worth mentioning this framework isn't about achieving all 3 perfectly at all times either. It's more like a helpful map, something to gently return to and check in with, rather than a strict standard to meet flawlessly every single day. I also want to draw an interesting distinction here between self-compassion and self-esteem, since they're related but not quite the same thing. Right. Self-esteem is often based on evaluation, feeling good about yourself specifically because of achievements, comparisons, or positive outcomes. While self-compassion doesn't depend on those things at all, you can genuinely offer yourself kindness even during failure, mistakes, or moments when you don't feel particularly successful or impressive. Right, that's actually such an important difference. Self-esteem can become quite fragile since it depends on external outcomes, while self-compassion offers a much more stable, consistent source of support since it doesn't require things to be going well. Exactly. Research actually suggests self-compassion may even be a healthier, more stable foundation than self-esteem alone, since it remains available precisely during the moments we need support most, difficulty and failure, rather than only during success. That's such a valuable distinction, honestly, shifting focus from how do I feel good about myself towards how do I treat myself kindly regardless of how things are going. I also think this distinction explains why some very high-achieving people still struggle with self-worth. If their sense of value is entirely built on achievement, that foundation is genuinely fragile, since achievement naturally fluctuates over time. Right, whereas self-compassion offers something much steadier underneath, a baseline of kindness that doesn't depend on constantly proving your worth through results.
Let's clear up a few common myths about self-kindness before continuing.
Myth 1. Being kind to myself means I'll become lazy or complacent. Actually, as my own story showed, and as research consistently supports, self-compassion tends to increase motivation and resilience, not decrease it, since it removes the paralyzing weight of shame and harsh self-judgment.
Right. Harsh self-criticism might feel motivating in a short burst, but it often leads to avoidance and burnout over time, while self-kindness tends to support more sustainable, consistent effort.
I actually find this myth to be one of the most persistent and stubborn ones, honestly. There's such a deep cultural belief that being hard on yourself is what drives success, when the research really points in the opposite direction.
Right, and I think part of the confusion comes from mixing up self-kindness with complacency itself. They're actually quite different. Self-kindness supports you through effort and growth. Complacency avoids effort altogether. They're not the same thing at all.
Myth 2. Self-kindness is selfish or self-indulgent. Actually, treating yourself with basic kindness and understanding is simply fair, consistent treatment, applying the same compassion you'd naturally offer others to yourself, too, rather than reserving kindness only for everyone else.
Right, and honestly, being kinder to yourself often makes you more capable of being genuinely kind and present for others, too, rather than running on empty from constant internal criticism.
That's such an important point. Self-kindness and kindness towards others aren't competing resources. They actually tend to support and strengthen each other.
Right. It's a bit like the classic idea of putting on your own oxygen mask before helping someone else. You genuinely have more capacity to support others when you're not depleted by constant internal harshness.
Myth 3. I need to earn kindness through good behavior or achievement. Self-kindness isn't a reward for good performance. It's a consistent, unconditional way of relating to yourself, available especially during the moments you feel you deserve it least.
Right. That's honestly one of the most important myths to release. Kindness during failure and imperfection is exactly when it matters most, not only during success.
Let's go through a few specific situations where self-kindness matters especially, since it can look a little different depending on the context. Self-kindness after a mistake.
Connecting to our bad workday episode, phrases like, I made a mistake and I'm handling it, or this doesn't erase everything else I've done well, help maintain perspective and kindness after an error.
Right, and it also helps to separate the mistake from your identity. I made a mistake is very different from I am a mistake, even though harsh self-talk often blurs that important distinction. Self-kindness with your body.
Rather than harsh self-criticism about appearance, phrases like, my body carries me through my life, and that deserves respect. Or simply avoiding negative self-talk about your body altogether. Support a kinder relationship with yourself physically.
Right, and this is honestly an area where a lot of people carry particularly harsh, long-standing patterns of self-criticism. So even small, gentle shifts here can make a really meaningful difference over time. Self-kindness during grief or loss.
During difficult emotional periods, phrases like, I'm allowed to feel this for as long as I need to, honor genuine emotional experience without rushing or judging it.
Right. Grief specifically doesn't follow a neat, predictable timeline, and being kind to yourself often means releasing any pressure to be over it by a certain point. Self-kindness as a parent.
For parents specifically, phrases like, I'm doing my best with what I know right now, or perfect parenting doesn't exist and that's okay, ease the heavy, often unrealistic pressure many parents place on themselves.
Right, and this connects to our family conversations episode 2, extending that same compassion inward, not just outward towards family members, is honestly just as important. Self-kindness during comparison.
Connecting to our comparison episode, phrases like, my journey isn't the same as anyone else's, or I'm exactly where I need to be right now, gently counter the harshness that often comes with comparing yourself to others.
Right, and combining this with the common humanity idea we discussed earlier really reinforces the point. Everyone's journey looks different, and that's a shared, universal truth, not a personal shortcoming. I also want to briefly explore where harsh self-talk often originates, since understanding its source can make it easier to gently work on changing it.
Right. For a lot of people, harsh internal criticism actually echoes voices from childhood. critical parents, teachers, or other significant figures whose words we internalized and now unconsciously repeat to ourselves.
Exactly. And sometimes harsh self-talk develops as a misguided attempt at self-protection, too, believing that if we criticize ourselves first and harshly enough, we'll somehow avoid disappointment or failure, or prevent others from criticizing us even more.
Right, though as we've discussed today, this strategy usually backfires. Harsh self-criticism tends to create more anxiety and avoidance rather than actually protecting us from anything.
Exactly. And simply recognizing, oh, this harsh voice isn't actually mine originally, it's something I picked up somewhere else, can create a small, helpful distance, making it easier to gently question and eventually soften that inner voice over time.
I also think it's worth mentioning some people develop harsh self-talk from highly competitive environments too. School, sports, certain workplaces, where constant comparison and criticism were simply the norm, rather than coming from one specific person or relationship.
Right, and regardless of the specific origin, the important thing is recognizing that this pattern was learned, which means it can also be gently unlearned, or at least softened through consistent, patient practice.
Let's connect this directly to English learning too, since self-kindness is honestly such a valuable, often overlooked part of learning any new language.
Right. So many learners speak to themselves incredibly harshly about mistakes. I should be better by now. I sound stupid. Language that would be genuinely unkind if said to anyone else.
Exactly. And this connects to almost every episode we've done. Procrastination, comfort zones, overthinking, harsh self-talk around English mistakes often makes learners avoid practicing altogether, which slows progress rather than helping it.
Right. Instead, try phrases like, I'm learning, mistakes are part of the process, or my English today is better than it was last year, and that's what matters.
Exactly. And honestly, this entire podcast is really built on that same underlying philosophy. Gentle, consistent progress treated with patience and kindness, rather than harsh, unrealistic expectations of instant perfection.
Right. So the next time you make a mistake speaking or writing English, try responding to yourself the way we'd respond to you, warmly, patiently, and with genuine encouragement.
I also think it's worth mentioning learners who treat themselves kindly during the learning process often report enjoying the process more too, which naturally leads to more consistent practice and ultimately faster, genuine progress.
Right. That's such an important point. Self-kindness isn't just emotionally nicer during language learning. It genuinely supports the exact kind of consistent, long-term practice that leads to real fluency.
We received a lovely message from a listener connecting to today's topic.
Oh, tell us.
She said she used to feel guilty resting, always pushing herself to do more, until she started practicing one simple phrase: rest is productive too.
That's such a lovely, simple reframe.
Right? And she said repeating that phrase genuinely helped her feel less guilty about resting, which ironically made her more consistently productive over time.
We also received a second story from a listener who struggled specifically with harsh self-talk around his physical health, constantly criticizing his own body and fitness level.
Oh, that sounds like such a difficult, painful pattern to carry around daily.
Right. He said the turning point came when he started using the common humanity idea we discussed earlier, reminding himself that struggling with body image and fitness is an incredibly common experience, not a personal failure unique to him.
That's such a great practical application of that specific concept.
Exactly. And he said combining that reminder with small, kind daily actions, going for a short walk without any pressure to perform perfectly, gradually shifted his relationship with his body from harsh criticism towards something much gentler and more sustainable.
That's such a hopeful example of how a shift in internal tone, not necessarily different actions at first, can create real, lasting change over time.
He also mentioned that he started keeping a small note on his phone with the phrase, "common humanity, not personal failure," something he could glance at whenever those harsh, comparing thoughts about his body started to arise.
That's such a practical, simple tool, having a quick, visible reminder ready exactly when you need it most.
Exactly. And like anything else we've discussed on this podcast, it might feel a little unfamiliar or awkward the first few times, but tends to feel more natural with repeated practice. We got a question: what if being kind to myself feels like making excuses for not doing better?
That's such an honest, common concern. Self-kindness isn't about avoiding responsibility. It's about responding to mistakes with encouragement rather than punishment, which research shows actually leads to more growth, not less.
Right, and it can help to think of self-kindness as similar to how a good coach or mentor treats someone, still honest about what needs improvement, but delivered with genuine support and encouragement rather than harsh criticism.
Exactly. The best coaches and mentors don't ignore mistakes or lower standards. They simply address them in a way that motivates continued effort rather than shame and avoidance.
Right, and that's really the model worth adopting for yourself, too. Honest, clear, and encouraging, rather than either dishonestly avoiding accountability or harshly punishing yourself for being human. It's okay. I'm doing my best.
I'm allowed to make mistakes.
Would I say this to a friend?
I showed up today, and that matters.
This is hard right now, and that's okay.
Let's also try a few slightly longer sentences.
I made a mistake, and here's how I'm learning from it.
My journey isn't the same as anyone else's, and that's completely fine.
I'm doing my best with what I know right now.
Hard moments are part of life, and I'm allowed to be kind to myself through them.
Try saying one of these sentences out loud today, maybe adjusting it to describe your own current situation.
Let's review a few useful words from today's episode.
First, self-compassion, meaning treating yourself with kindness and understanding, especially during difficulty.
For example, I'm practicing more self-compassion lately.
Next, to reframe, meaning to look at something from a different, more helpful perspective.
For example, I reframed my mistake as a learning opportunity.
We also used harsh, meaning severe or overly critical.
For example, I used to be really harsh with myself.
And finally, to acknowledge, meaning to recognize or admit something exists.
For example, I acknowledged my effort, even though the result wasn't perfect.
A few more useful words. Common humanity, referring to the recognition that struggle and imperfection are shared, universal human experiences.
For example, remembering our common humanity helped me feel less alone in my struggle.
Complacent, meaning overly satisfied and unmotivated to improve, often mentioned in the myth that self-kindness leads to laziness.
For example, I used to worry self-kindness would make me complacent, but it actually helped me stay motivated.
And internalize, meaning to absorb or adopt an idea, often unconsciously until it feels like your own.
For example, I internalized some harsh criticism from childhood, and I'm working on gently letting it go.
Try using 2 or 3 of these words today, maybe in a comment describing your own relationship with self-kindness. We talked about what self-kindness really means and how it's different from making excuses.
We shared our own stories, my experience with procrastination and harsh self-talk, and Anna's experience with comparison and self-criticism.
We covered useful vocabulary and phrases for self-compassion, reframing, and comfort.
We shared simple daily habits, the friend test, small daily kindness, acknowledging wins, and gentle self-talk.
And we shared a wonderful listener story about reframing rest as productive, too.
We also covered the 3 parts of self-compassion, the difference between self-esteem and self-compassion, common myths, self-kindness in different life situations, where harsh self-talk often comes from, its connection to English learning, a simple self-compassion exercise, and a second listener story about body image.
Before we close, one last small tip. Today, try noticing one moment of self-criticism and gently ask, would I say this to a friend?
Right, and if the answer is no, try softening the words, even just slightly, into something you'd be comfortable saying to someone you care about.
And remember, self-kindness isn't about being soft on yourself in a way that avoids growth. It's about supporting yourself through growth with warmth rather than harshness.
Next time, we're going to talk about something practical and useful: how to talk about your job in English, useful vocabulary and phrases for describing your work naturally in conversation.
That's a nice, lighter, practical episode after today's more reflective topic.
We're really looking forward to that one.
If you enjoyed this episode, like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments what's one kind thing you can say to yourself today.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and please be gentle with yourselves.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye!